I'm Alex, and for as long as I can remember, I've always been the invisible one, the one who didn't matter. Growing up in a family with two sons, I quickly learned where I stood, at the bottom. My younger brother, Benjamin, was the golden child, the center of the universe around which everything revolved. He wasn't particularly brilliant or talented, but to my parents, Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Thompson, he could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was treated like an unpaid servant, a utility meant to keep the household running smoothly while they poured all their love, attention, and resources into Benjamin. Christmas mornings were the worst. I'd watch Benjamin tear open boxes filled with brand new gaming consoles, designer clothes, and the trendiest gadgets money could buy. When it came to my turn, I'd find myself staring at secondhand novels, socks, or school supplies. Once, when I was 14, I saved every penny from my newspaper delivery job for months to buy myself a decent pair of sneakers. The next day, my mom scolded me for wasting money on pointless indulgences. But that same afternoon, she returned home carrying $500 cleats for Benjamin, claiming he needed them to grow. The injustice didn't stop there. My weekends weren't spent playing video games or hanging out with friends. Instead, I was outside mowing the lawn, clearing gutters, or babysitting Benjamin while my parents either rested or ran errands. They called me mature and dependable, as if those words justified turning me into their personal assistant. And yet, despite my relentless efforts to excel academically, they barely noticed. When I made the honor roll, my dad would glance at my report card and mutter something about how Benjamin would catch up soon enough. But when Benjamin brought home a C+, they celebrated him with ice cream, praising his progress. Then came the moment that shattered whatever hope I had left. It started with an envelope, a letter from MIT. Against all odds, I had been accepted with a full scholarship. Everything was covered: tuition, housing, books, even living expenses. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, validated. I imagined walking across the stage at graduation, proving to myself, and to them, that I was worth something. That evening, I carefully placed the letter on the dinner table, waiting for the right moment to share the news. I got into MIT, I announced, my voice trembling with excitement. Silence fell over the room. My dad glanced at the page briefly before returning to his meal. My mom gave it a cursory look, then turned to Benjamin and said, "Did you mention to your brother that you made the junior varsity basketball team?" Just like that, my dreams were dismissed. My heart sank as they carried on, discussing how Benjamin would surely make varsity next year. I sat there, my fork hovering midair, feeling invisible once again. 2 weeks later, my father called us to the kitchen table for what he described as a family discussion. His tone was firm, unyielding. After careful consideration, he began, "We've decided you're not going to MIT. Instead, you'll attend the local community college. If you do well, you can transfer to a state university after 2 years. But MIT is fully funded." I protested. "I don't need any financial help." "It's not about the money," my mom interjected, dabbing at her dry eyes. "Benjamin is starting high school and he'll need extra guidance. With your dad traveling more for work and me taking additional shifts at the hospital, we need someone here to keep things running smoothly." Their words hit me like a punch to the gut. Once again, I was being sacrificed for Benjamin's benefit. My father's voice grew colder. "As long as you live under this roof, you will abide by our expectations." Then my mother delivered the final blow. "How could you even think of leaving your family at a time like this? After all we've done for you?" That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every ounce of anger, frustration, and hurt bubbled inside me. I realized then that staying would mean losing myself completely. So I made a decision, one that would change everything. Quietly, I began packing my belongings. Clothes, coding manuals, important documents. I stored them at Ethan's place, my only true friend who had never let me down. I withdrew all my savings, opened a new bank account, and sold off anything I couldn't take with me. Each item I packed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. On the morning I left, I woke up before sunrise. Most of my things were already gone, leaving behind only a small travel bag with essentials. I scribbled a note and left it on my mattress. "I'm choosing a new direction. Please don't try to reach me." As I stepped out the door, I paused for a moment, looking back at the room that held so many painful memories. Then, under the soft glow of dawn, I walked away, carrying nothing but determination and the faintest glimmer of hope. The first day I stepped onto MIT's campus, I felt like a stranger in a foreign land. Everything was new: the towering lecture halls, the bustling labs filled with humming machines, and the students who seemed to radiate confidence. But beneath my uncertainty lay an unshakable determination. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's afterthought. I wasn't the invisible older brother or the unpaid assistant. I was Alex Thompson, a student at one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. And I was going to make it count. The transition wasn't easy. The coursework was grueling, and there were moments when I doubted myself. Late nights became my norm as I juggled problem sets, coding projects, and part-time work. Yet, amidst the chaos, something remarkable happened. I began to thrive. During my sophomore year, I landed an internship at a top tech company in Boston. It was my first taste of validation outside the confines of my family's neglect. My supervisor pulled me aside after my final presentation and said, "You've got potential, kid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words stayed with me, fueling my resolve to prove myself further. By the time I graduated, I had not only earned my degree but also shattered every expectation placed upon me. I was the valedictorian of my computer science cohort, standing on stage to deliver a speech that left the audience applauding for minutes. As I held my diploma in hand, I allowed myself a rare moment of pride. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was proof that I could rise above everything they had tried to impose on me. After graduation, opportunities came knocking. I joined a prominent Silicon Valley firm, where my innovative solutions quickly caught the attention of senior executives. Within 3 years, I was promoted twice, eventually becoming the executive director of a global division. My annual salary soared past $750,000, and I purchased my first home, a sleek condo in an upscale district. For the first time, I experienced what it meant to be valued, not because of blood ties but because of merit. But success wasn't just about wealth or titles for me. It was about creating a life where I felt seen and appreciated. I built a network of friends who celebrated my achievements and supported me through challenges. Ethan remained my closest confidant, always ready with advice or encouragement. Then, 2 years into my career, I met Denise, a brilliant engineer whose own complicated family history made her uniquely empathetic. Together, we formed a partnership rooted in mutual respect and understanding. To give back, I founded a nonprofit organization aimed at helping youth from emotionally neglectful homes. Every scholarship awarded felt like a small act of justice, a way to rewrite the script for others who might feel trapped in their circumstances. Through therapy, I also began healing from the wounds of my upbringing, learning to separate empathy from obligation. Slowly, I created what my therapist called a chosen family, a circle of people who truly valued me. For 7 years, I maintained complete silence with my biological family. They tried reaching out, emails, calls, even enlisting distant relatives to guilt-trip me, but I never responded. I kept my online presence minimal, ensuring no trace led back to them. To them, I was likely still the disappointing son who refused to play his role. That narrative suited me fine. I was finally living a life where I mattered. Then one Tuesday morning the phone rang. A number I hadn't seen in years flashed across the screen. When I answered, my father's voice greeted me, older, wearier, yet still carrying the same authoritative tone. He skipped pleasantries, diving straight into his demand. Benjamin was getting married, and they expected me to contribute $15,000 toward the extravagant ceremony. "We're thinking 15 grand should cover your part," he stated bluntly. "Considering all we've done for you, the least you could do is support your sibling on this important occasion." I almost laughed at the audacity of his words. "Dad," I replied calmly, "I finished my degree at MIT half a decade ago. I'm now an executive director at a major tech firm, earning over $750,000 annually. I own my property outright. I haven't needed your help since I walked away, and I certainly don't need it today." The line went silent. For once, my father was at a loss for words. "As for Benjamin's wedding," I added, "I won't be attending, nor will I be sending money. He was never my responsibility, no matter how hard you tried to make him mine. That hasn't changed." Before he could respond, I hung up. I assumed that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. 3 months passed after my abrupt phone call with my father. I had moved on, immersing myself deeper into my work, my relationship with Denise, and the nonprofit I founded to support youth from emotionally neglectful homes. But fate wasn't done with me yet. One morning, as I sipped coffee in my sleek kitchen overlooking the city skyline, my phone buzzed, a message from an old friend back home. The news was jarring. Benjamin's wedding had been canceled. Julia's parents had uncovered his secret. Benjamin had embezzled funds from a previous job to fund his lavish lifestyle. Though the legal matter was handled discreetly to avoid public scandal, the engagement was terminated, and the non-refundable expenses for the extravagant ceremony were lost. The fallout didn't stop there. My parents, who had taken out a second mortgage on their house expecting to recoup costs through wedding gifts, were now drowning in debt. Desperation seeped into every corner of their lives. 2 weeks later, my mother called, her voice trembling with tears. "We're about to lose everything," she choked out. "We need $225,000 to keep the house and settle our most urgent debts." Her words carried a weight I hadn't heard before, but they also triggered something deep within me, a mix of pity and resentment. I agreed to meet them, not because I intended to help but because I wanted to hear their tragic tale firsthand. That weekend, I arrived at a quiet cafe near their home. I dressed deliberately, wearing a tailored suit and a high-end watch, subtle signals of success I knew they would recognize. As I walked in, I saw them immediately. My father's hair now completely silver, my mother's face lined with stress, and Benjamin slouched in his seat, visibly heavier but still carrying that smug energy I remembered all too well. "Thank you for being here," my mother said, reaching for my hand. I kept my fingers curled around my mug, its warmth grounding me. For the next 20 minutes they rotated through their story, the letter about losing the house, Benjamin's financial misdeeds, the cancelled wedding plans and the deposits that were gone forever. They'd burned through their retirement fund, borrowed from friends, sold off anything valuable. Now they had no options left. "We're still your family," my mother concluded, her voice pleading. When it was my turn to speak, I took a slow sip of coffee, setting the cup down gently. "When I was 16, I began, my voice steady, I spent 6 months saving money to buy a graphing calculator for my AP calculus course. The night before I was going to purchase it, you took that money so Benjamin could attend baseball camp." My mother's face flushed red, clearly remembering. "Then there was MIT. I reminded them how I earned a full ride only for them to demand I stay home and play unpaid babysitter and academic coach for Benjamin." "We needed you here," my father interjected, defensive. "No," I corrected him sharply. "You wanted someone to take care of the parenting work you didn't want to deal with. There's a big difference." I looked at each of them, meeting their eyes one by one. "Every time I needed you most, you chose Benjamin. Every single time. You threw away my opportunities so his path would stay easy. That's not fair." Benjamin cut in, speaking for the first time. "I didn't ask for any of that." "You're right," I replied. "The decisions were theirs. But you benefited from them and you never once asked what that cost me." I opened my laptop, turning the screen toward them. My bank app displayed an account balance far exceeding the amount they needed. "I could clear your debts right now," I said calmly. "This amount wouldn't even put a dent in my monthly expenses." I paused, letting the moment settle. "But I'm not going to." "Why the hell not?" my father barked, his voice rising. "Because you were never really my family," I replied evenly. "A real family lifts each other up. They celebrate each other's accomplishments. They give support, they don't just demand it all from one person." I closed the laptop with a soft thud. My mother's tear-streaked face stared back at me, and for a fleeting moment, I hesitated. These were still the people who raised me, however flawed that upbringing had been. Was I becoming as cold-hearted as they once were to me? Maybe helping them would be the kind thing to do, the compassionate choice. I imagined transferring the money, seeing the relief on their faces, maybe even a sincere thank you. But then I remembered, every time I reached out for help, I was left alone. All the moments when sacrifices were demanded only from me. I remembered my father's harsh voice telling me to give up MIT, my mother's blank stare when I shared my proudest moments. I knew if I helped them now, nothing would change. They'd take what they needed and go back to treating me like a backup plan, a bank. My hesitation vanished. "I created this life in spite of you, not thanks to you," I said firmly. "And I'm not going to spend what I earned helping people who never believed I was worth anything." My father's face turned red with fury. My mother's crying grew louder. Benjamin stared at me like I had betrayed them. "You arrogant little bastard," my father spat, his voice rising enough to attract attention from nearby tables. "If I hear you say 'after all we did for you' one more time," I interrupted, my voice low and sharp, "I'll walk out right now. So tell me, Dad, what did you actually do for me? Did you encourage my goals? Did you take pride in my accomplishments? Did you ever put my needs ahead of Benjamin's?" He stayed silent. I stood, gathered my things and looked at them one last time. "I don't take pleasure in your situation," I said honestly. "I'm sorry this happened. But these financial messes are the consequences of your choices, just like my achievements came from mine." I departed the cafe without glancing back. 2 months after our tense meeting at the cafe, life carried on as usual for me. Denise and I had just finalized plans for a small vacation to celebrate her promotion, and my nonprofit was preparing to award its largest scholarship yet. It felt like I had everything under control, a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined my childhood. But then, one evening as I returned home, my phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Messages flooded in, not just from my parents or Benjamin, but also from distant relatives and acquaintances who suddenly remembered my existence. "They're trying to guilt-trip you," Denise said calmly, glancing over my shoulder. She was right. Every message carried the same tone, pleas wrapped in thinly veiled accusations. One uncle wrote, "How can you abandon your own blood?" Another cousin added, "Do you really want their ruin on your conscience?" I blocked each number without hesitation. These were the same people who had turned a blind eye to my struggles growing up. Their sudden interest wasn't about helping my family, it was about pressuring me into compliance. A week later, an old friend from my hometown reached out. His name was Jake, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "I thought you should know," he began hesitantly. "Your parents' house, it's gone. The bank seized it last week." My chest tightened momentarily, though I couldn't tell if it was sadness or something else entirely. According to Jake, Benjamin had moved back in before the eviction, and now all three of them were crammed into a modest rental on the outskirts of town. My father had taken up overnight shifts as a security guard, while my mother worked back-to-back shifts at the hospital. Benjamin, unsurprisingly, remained unemployed. The news stung, but not in the way they might have expected. There was a flicker of regret, not for my decision but for the choices that led them here. They had built their lives on shaky foundations, prioritizing appearances and convenience over responsibility. And now those choices had caught up with them. Still, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow, not for them but for the wasted opportunities, the love and support they could have given me instead of resentment and neglect. 6 months passed and another update arrived via email, one final plea from my mother sent directly to my company address. Her words were desperate, almost pleading. "Even if you won't help Benjamin, please consider me. I've done everything I can to hold this family together." Reading her message, I felt nothing but quiet resolve. This wasn't the first time she tried to manipulate my emotions, framing herself as the martyr whose sacrifices deserved repayment. But I knew better. Every sacrifice she claimed to make was ultimately for Benjamin, never for me. That night, sitting alone on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I reflected on everything that had brought me here. Growing up, I believed family was unbreakable, a bond stronger than any hardship. But over the years, I came to realize that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. True family is built on mutual respect, on giving without expecting anything in return. My chosen family, Denise, Ethan, my colleagues and friends, had shown me what unconditional support looked like. They celebrated my successes, supported me through failures, and never treated me as expendable. Blocking my mother's email marked the end of an era. I didn't respond, knowing there was nothing left to say. Instead, I focused on the lessons I'd learned along the way. Setting boundaries wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting myself from further harm. It wasn't cruel to refuse to save them. It was necessary. Helping them now would only enable the same toxic patterns that had destroyed us in the first place. As weeks turned into months, reports trickled in about Benjamin's latest troubles. He'd been arrested again, this time for writing fraudulent checks. My parents' marriage, strained beyond repair by financial ruin, officially ended. My father moved into a studio apartment near his workplace, while my mother rented a tiny efficiency unit closer to the hospital. Each update painted a clearer picture of their downfall, a culmination of bad decisions, misplaced priorities, and decades of enabling Benjamin's reckless behavior. Yet, despite their suffering, I felt no satisfaction. Watching them crumble wasn't vindication. It was confirmation of what I'd always known. Their actions, or lack thereof, had shaped their fate long before I walked away. What surprised me most was how little bitterness remained. Through therapy, I'd come to understand that holding on to anger only chained me to the past. Forgiveness didn't mean excusing their behavior, it meant freeing myself from its grip. By the time spring arrived, I had found peace. Not because I wished them well, but because I understood that their choices belonged to them just as mine belonged to me. As I stood on the balcony that evening watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized something profound. Sometimes walking away isn't abandonment, it's liberation. True happiness comes not from clinging to broken ties, but from creating new ones with people who truly value you. Today, as I sit on the balcony of my condo overlooking the city skyline, I feel a profound sense of peace, a feeling that once seemed impossible. My life now is filled with people who genuinely value me, starting with Denise. She's not just my partner, she's my equal, someone who listens without judgment and supports without condition. Together, we've built a relationship rooted in mutual respect and shared dreams. We talk about our future often. Plans for travel, starting a family on our own terms, and growing old side by side. For the first time, I understand what it means to be truly loved. But Denise isn't the only one who has changed my world. Over the years, I've cultivated what my therapist calls a chosen family. A circle of friends, colleagues, and mentors who celebrate my successes, comfort me in failures, and remind me daily that I matter. Ethan remains my closest confidant, always ready with advice or encouragement. The nonprofit I founded continues to thrive, awarding scholarships to young people who remind me of my younger self, kids yearning for recognition and support. Each scholarship awarded feels like a small act of justice, a way to rewrite the script for others who might feel trapped in their circumstances. Reflecting on my journey, I realize how far I've come, from a boy burdened by neglect to a man unshackled by his past. I learned that family isn't defined solely by blood, it's forged through trust, respect, and unconditional love. True family doesn't demand sacrifices from one person while ignoring their needs. They lift each other up, celebrate accomplishments, and offer support freely, not as a debt owed but as a gift given willingly. Setting boundaries wasn't easy, especially when guilt tried to creep in. But through therapy, I came to understand that protecting myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Helping others should never come at the expense of losing yourself. By drawing a firm line between my past and present, I reclaimed my power. I chose freedom over resentment, growth over stagnation, and happiness over bitterness. As I look back, I see two versions of myself. The boy who left home under the cover of dawn, carrying nothing but determination, and the man sitting here today surrounded by love and success. Both are part of me, but they no longer define me. What defines me now is the life I've created. A life where I am valued, respected, and free. To anyone reading this, know this. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to stay with. And that's okay. You have the right to walk away from toxicity, to set boundaries, and to build your own circle with people who truly cherish you. It's not betrayal, it's fairness. It's not abandonment, it's liberation. True happiness comes not from clinging to broken ties but from forging new ones with those who see your worth. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I take a deep breath, savoring the moment. This is my life now, a testament to resilience, hope, and the belief that everyone deserves to be seen and loved for who they are. And for the first time, I know I've found exactly where I belong.